So, yeah, not to turn this into the channel of bicycle repairs I'm bad at, but this just happened. Until I got this, the repair stand there. I've been doing all of my bicycle repair in a kind of a dark basement, and I haven't, you don't notice things as well when you can't properly see. So I hadn't actually noticed that this had eaten through. And before you judge me too harshly, let me just. This was on there, of course, like it's supposed to. So sort of maybe like half an inch of this was peering out, and it's dirty. So yeah. Anyway, I didn't notice, and when I did notice, I bought a new fork because I thought, well, come on, we're gonna have to. And today I brought the bike. Ooh, I brought the bike in to do the repair, and as I put it up on the repair stand, the front wheel and the half of the fork just fell off. So that was fortuitous timing that it happened then and not while I was riding. Okay, so first let's release this. I'm seriously hoping that nothing broke. I just put it fell off and just, was suspended by the brake cable. And I'm hoping nothing broke doing that. I've had a set of just the regular hex keys, the L-shaped ones for all my adult life. But I just recently bought a set of these T-handle ones, and I'm so glad I did. It's just an entirely different tool experience. There we go. That's safe. Of course, I can take the wheel off. There we go. The wheel is fine, of course, but yeah, that's like half a fork. Put the wheel over here somewhere. Yeah, obviously some water came out of this when it fell apart because yeah, it would. It's been raining. It's been raining into this hole and into the thing, and half the spring is in there because it's rusted and broken. All right, so I have loosened all of these cables, and now I'm gonna take the rest of the old fork off. So I just hurt myself. I just heard what I just said, and, and I gotta tell you, every time this is an old bike. It's years old, and I ride it hard, and there's rain and everything. So I gotta say, every time, and you saw what just happened. So I gotta say, every time I take a wrench or a screwdriver or whatever to a screw and it comes loose, it's actually kind of a relief because I'm always afraid that something has rusted in place. It's gonna be fun to see if this actually comes off. But let's take the handlebar off first. There we go. I just want it to not fall down because I haven't taken the cables off. I just took the slack out of them. There we go. And this is actually loose. If this was a new fork, or if this was in good working order, it would have just dropped out. So something is stuck. I watched some videos and guides before doing this, so I tried to acquaint myself with the subject matter, and I learned that the order of all of this matters. So I'm going to knoll these over on my worktop here. So that's 1 and 2. These two come off first, and there's a lot of rust there, and that's not a happy feeling. That's definitely not coming off. I can feel stuff is loose here, and it's supposed to drop, but it doesn't. What's going to probably happen is as I turn it around for a tool, it falls off by itself. This does not look good. Let's see. That's just grime and dirt coming off of the thing inside the tube here. Oh, I just need my glasses. There we go. If I can see what's going on. This thing's loose and that's fine, but this seems to be rusted together. Yeah, I should have probably bought the entire set of rings and bushings and all of that stuff, because this looks like it's not going to be usable. All right, cool. See, like I said, the order of all of these bits and parts is important. So I'm just going to put them aside one at a time. The split ring, number 3, number 4, number 5. Any of this come off? Ah, that's the bearing. So no. Well, actually, yeah, the bearing is in here. Yeah, that comes off too. Number 6, and then this comes out, and none of this comes off. But here is the other bearing, number 7, and I think this is called the crown ring, number 8. That's it. And this is not in good condition. I'm learning. And one of the things that I'm learning is I have to be a little bit more careful with this. I mean, it's been running for years, so not that bad, but I should be a little more careful about whether this becomes, if I'm maintaining it too poorly and things like water gets in and it starts breaking down. So away with you. And then I'm just gonna, that looks pretty good. That looks surprisingly good. I was afraid I was gonna look into that and see a bunch of rust and terrible, like spiders and skeletons and terrible things. All right, so one of the things that kind of intimidated me as I was researching this, finding out how to do this task, is you need to actually cut. You buy a brand new piece like this, and it's not exactly cheap, and then you cut it because it has to be the same size. The thing is, this pipe, or the shaft, I guess, has to be the exact same length. It's not microns, but it has to be the right length. So first thing I'm going to do is cut that to the right length with an appropriate sense of dread. And if I measure this, it says 204 millimeters exactly. So from the, oh, wait a minute, hold on. These are different. I think there's more stuff here that I didn't, that comes off. Yep, there's more stuff that comes off. Look at this. I don't know if you can tell. This ends completely flat. And this has a sort of like a bushing or something for the bearing. I'll just get that off first, shall I? I'll have to use possibly a little bit of force, but mostly guile. And the first thing I'm going to do is what already worked, which is the spray thing. Because that helped up here, so it might help down there as well. Let's put some of this stuff on. This is very much why I like covering my worktop in this brown paper here. That's because I can do all of this stuff and then the day after tomorrow or whatever, when I come in and take out my sewing machine because I'm going to sew something or do something else that's a different kind of project and maybe a little bit delicate to the kind of dust and stuff or dirt, I just remove the brown paper and I have a clean worktop. So I just bought another 50-meter roll of that stuff, and I love it. There's a lot of gunk in there. Let's just see maybe a few select wraps with the plastic mallet. Another thing I really love, I have these candy hammers here, and I'm very happy with those. Let's see if I can tell if anything is loose around here. I'm going at this fairly early on a Saturday, because if it turns out something either doesn't come off or breaks, or I need something and I didn't know, I have a chance of going to the bike shop, or at the very least I can order something online, and I can actually have it by tomorrow because my supplier is really good that way. I don't think this is gonna, oh, wait a minute, I see movement. I mean, this is probably steel or something like that, so it's not like it's super easy to deform. But if I did this with a regular hammer, I would definitely ruin it. But using this thing, I have a chance of sort of massaging this loose without doing damage to it. All right, I have movement. Yes. Oh my God, this is beautiful. Look at that. Look at that. It was definitely more guile than force, and that's the way it should be. There we go. Now I've taken everything off. The thing number 10 that goes on, or rather number 1 in reverse order. Oops, number 16. These are the 10 rings, or rather the 9 rings and this, the top cap, which make up the bearing for the front fork. And I think I should just clean them very, very thoroughly. Part number 2. Now, part number 1 is interesting. Well, I don't know if interesting. Part number 1 is the top cap. And it's fine. It actually doesn't need any maintenance or anything. But I have a different top cap. And that's because, let's just get that out of here. I had to get a top cap because, well, actually not for the cap, but for this, which is, I believe, called a star nut, and we'll get to that later, but I needed this part, and I could only buy it with this part. I guess that's part number 0, the star nut, but anyway, that's where we are now. And then next thing that needs to happen, like I said, I need to shorten the shaft of the new fork to the exact length of the shaft on the old fork. And it says exactly 21 centimeters. I'll make a mark. There we go. Okay, so I have very carefully marked out the whole circumference here. I've marked it out, and I've tested it, and I've checked, and it is exactly right. So there is a guide tool that you can get for cutting things like this, but once again, I'll be doing this once in my life. So I'm just going to do it by eyeball. I have cut a lot of round things in my life, so I'm pretty sure I'll be okay. And and there's a trick here. I'm just going to show you. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm cutting on the pole. You see, we're all used to cutting on the push, and I am taking inspiration from Japanese woodworking, and I've just flipped the blade because it does give, I feel it gives a lot more control to cut on the pull. So that's what I'm doing here. For accuracy, there's no match in my book. You know what? Just got to add a little bit of cutting oil. I just got this. It's the first time I'm using this. And it's actually for thread cutting and stuff. But holy, that's better. That's a lot better. Thank you, me. Again, your results may be different, or your preferences may be different, but the way I do it, by doing it this way, I feel like I'm sort of distributing the question of accuracy between measuring and cutting. Instead of having just one measuring mark, which I then have to do all the accuracy in the cutting to keep it straight. This way I do accurate measuring and then I do accurate cutting. And they sort of work together towards the result. That's how I like it anyway. Near the end, I use as little force as I can get away with. Let the tool do the working so that it doesn't bite. Whoa. Bing. There we go. Yeah, I felt pretty confident about that cut, but let's see if I was right to do so. That's good. Now another benefit, another advantage of using a little bit of cutting oil is you don't get shavings all over the workshop, because instead of flying around like shavings, they tend to just sort of stick in this paste. You just need to do a quick sort of chamfer on this edge. This tiny little vise, not the most powerful thing in the world, but holy, it's a lot better than having nothing. So they are now the same length, and we're basically at the assembly stage. I'm just going to clean this up, and I'm going to get a new pair of gloves, because if there's one thing that I don't want in my bearings, it's metal shavings. So, yeah, I don't know. I've been out, so I don't know what my hair looks like. Anyway, my dudes, my dudettes, everyone in between, we are now at the stage where this new front fork goes back on this bike. I actually decided against trying to put to hammer in this star nut inside here. I don't know if you can see that. I was going to do it myself, but I was like, nah, I'm going to mess that up. So I just went down to the local guy, bike shop. Actually, I went to a couple because the first two couldn't do it. But the third guy was like, sure, I'll do that for you. Took all of 2 minutes. So the star nut is in place perfectly as it's supposed to be. And that was the last thing that this thing needed. And now it's ready to be put on the bike. Right way around. Put on the bike. And that's the next thing that's going to happen. Yeah, we'll see if I can actually manage to make this bicycle work again, because right now it's pretty stripped down. Okay, I've chosen this framing. I hope you can see. This is ready and the fork is ready, so I'm going to start assembling. And as I do, I'm going to put my glasses here. And as I do, I will obviously make sure that it is clean and lubricate it. Obviously this, which both cleans and lubes, is not the proper lubrication for a bearing, for ball bearing at all. But it's very good for getting rid of old grease before I put in some fresh grease. But it looks pretty good. The bearings look good. No reason to think this won't be perfectly serviceable once I get it together. I'm trying to do as good of a job of it as I know how with my limited bicycle repair skill set. So now comes this thing where all of these elements that make up the bearing have to go in order. So the first one, I already put that on because it needed seating. It's very tight. I believe this is called the crown bearing or crown ring. It goes right on top of this, which is the crown, and that's the main bearing where the ball bearings, the balls of the ball bearing run. But before I put the ball bearing on, this goes on. And again, not my area of expertise by any stretch, but I think that's a sealing ring. I think that's so as to keep water and moisture out. And then comes the ball bearings that goes, the ball bearing here that goes up into the bearing carrier or whatever you call that. So that comes on next, like so. And I'm going to grease that up before I assemble it. So I'm just going to put a nice bit of this, this grease here, which is for this kind of purpose, I have been told. So I just put a nice big dollop of that into the bearing. There we are. The next thing that happens is that it goes in. And then the bearing on the other end goes on. Actually, I'm just gonna again put some of this grease in here into the bearing itself, like that. And then this comes on, or goes in. And it also has a sort of sealing ring as the next thing that comes on there, or what I'm guessing is a sealing ring. And then this thing comes on. I don't know what that is. And then this thing. This is a split locking ring of some sort. I mean, I think that works to sort of lock everything in place. It's wedge shaped and split. So there. And then this thing. And then this thing. Just wipe this off a little bit. What happens now, is that the handlebar goes on. The steering thingy. And that comes on here. The steering comes on there. Whoops, got my glove caught. Let's get that back out. There we go. So that comes on. And then finally, the top cap comes on here. That's what's holding everything together. You can see I'm holding the fork with my other hand because if I let go now, it just drops. Just falls out. There we go. Because this top cap and screw is what's holding everything together. And again, this is what I understand. If you know this stuff, you may be screaming at the screen right now. But you put this on and tighten that. Start tightening on this one before tightening this, because it does squeeze everything together. And this is the tightness of this thing is what determines the tightness of the steering. So I'm just gonna start tightening this carefully. That's basically pre-tensioning the entire bearing that I just assembled with all these parts. So I'm tightening this. That's a little too tight, I think. I think I need it to be, I mean, it's a bearing. I know what a bearing feels like. So it's just a question of having no slop in it, obviously. And then I just tighten it until I feel like the steering, like it feels like good steering, and nothing's too tight. And then when you're satisfied with that, which I am now, these are tightened. The handlebar screws themselves are then tightened. There we go. And I now have a new front fork, and I'm tentatively excited about that. I think I tightened it a little bit too much, actually. I was scared about this whole thing. I didn't know if this was going to be the kind of thing where my bike would be in a disassembled state the whole weekend. And then I'd have to go to a mechanic on Monday. That's better. Yeah. But this part actually went pretty well. I'm cautiously optimistic that I actually managed to do something that seemed fairly complex and not screw it up. There we go.